Great. Welcome everybody to the Dementia Knowledge Network. It's lovely to have a few new faces today. Can't believe we're in June already. So I'm Elizabeth, and I think most of you will know Sarah and or both of us. So I'd like to just open with an acknowledgement to country. So our meeting is being held on the lands of the Wurundjeri people, and I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I'll throw to Sarah to do some introductions for some of our speakers today.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks again for coming along, and I'd like to introduce you to Julie, to Sally and to Gail, give them a wave, who are members of a quite newly formed Young Onset Dementia Carer Support Group. And they very kindly agreed to come along today and just share with us some of their experiences prior to joining that group, diagnosis and being in the group. I've prepared just a couple of questions, which I thought I'd start with, and then we can open the floor to everybody for comment or for questions. And we're welcome to hear, we'd love to hear your questions too, members of the support group. So I might start with Julie, because you're at the top of my screen, and then Sally, then Gail. What age was Frank diagnosed, and what supports did you receive at diagnosis?
He was 58 and there was absolutely no information. It was just the diagnosis, and it was more or less come for another checkup in 3 months' time. So it was not, and I sort of had to push a little bit, I guess, for some other tests or what do we do. And then fortunately my daughter got on the case, and she found Dementia Australia, and she found the NDIS, and through Dementia Australia, Jane Lee, we found caledonia. But otherwise we were pretty much left to our own devices. If it wasn't for my daughter coming to the party, I think I would probably still be struggling.
And Sally?
Jared was 55, actually 54, but close to 55. No support at all, I would say. And even to get a diagnosis, I had to push really, really hard. And we paid for our own PET scan, because that was really the only way we could confirm that that's what it was. So we paid for that out of our own pocket. Then that the geriatrician that we'd first been assigned to, I'll use the word assigned, purposefully, he was a referral by our GP because she really didn't know what to do. But she had no other information or anything like that. And the first geriatrician that we went to was an awful experience for both Jared and I. He was very rude, very condescending. Yeah, it was just really unpleasant experience. The second one we subsequently got has been amazing, and we still have him now. Dementia Australia, I a bit like Gail's daughter, I kind of got on and Googled as much as I could find, and saw there was some courses with Dementia Australia, so I enrolled in those, and that's where I met some of the people that I know in this group. And we went to a couple of the in-person courses. This is obviously before COVID, and then a couple, I did the carers course and a few other things after COVID. But getting onto NDIS has been one of the absolute key things for us to be able to manage. And I may not remember, which is a bit ironic given what we're talking about. But I don't recall, other than a leaflet from Dementia Australia, no mention from the doctors, no mention from anybody else about NDIS. So I had to do that journey by myself. And it's amazing that that's not talked about a lot more, especially since I know personally of a couple of people who unfortunately missed out, because by the time they knew about it, they were 65.
Yeah.
Which is really sad.
It's really sad. Thanks, Sally. And Gail?
Yeah, Rob was diagnosed at 63, and it was quite an extensive process. Our GP sent us to a neurologist who was really excellent at all the testing and everything. We had the PET scan, the SPEC scans, the MRIs, all the rest of it. And we got the diagnosis, I suppose, about 7 months after we started all the things. And he was great in that he told us what was happening and what to expect, but no real information. It really encouraged us to get our affairs in order, so that that was that. So that left us quite shell-shocked, although Rob has never really accepted his diagnosis anyway. He just said he had a few problems with memory, but, you know, that was all it was. And I got in touch with Dementia Australia, and I found them really helpful and good. And we had someone come out and talk to us, and she actually did mention about NDIS, that we should register for that. But I guess I had no understanding then of what that really involved. And Rob was quite resistant to having talking to anyone about anything. And so we let it lapse. You know, he was 63 when he was diagnosed, just before his 64th birthday. So before you know it, he was past the deadline of 65. So we're in aged care rather than NDIS, which is a big difference, I suppose. But yeah, I've had it's been great being Dementia Australia put us in touch with this group, which has been fantastic, and it's been really great to talk to other people in similar situations and that sort of thing. But I can't help thinking that doctors should have a kit, I would assume, put together by Dementia Australia, so that when you do have the diagnosis and you are still very unsure of things and you don't take as much information in as you should, that you have a step-by-step, this is what you can do. So that's my little impression. But I must admit, the group talking to Julie and Sally and the others, it's been great.
Thanks so much, Gail. I'm going to ask all three of you, and I think you've pretty much answered this. How did you hear about the support group? And I think Julie was through
you.
That's what I thought. And Sally and Gail was through Dementia Australia, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, what benefits do you think that you have experienced from joining that group? It started deep in the middle of lockdown, and we were very small to start with. But I'll start with you, Julie. What benefits do you think you've gained?
I've oh gosh, people. It's a lot easier to talk to people who are in the same situation, but caring for their spouse, because a lot of people that you would meet in other areas, like say the things that we went to at Dementia Australia, they'll be caring for a parent, and it is quite different. And for me also, there's a different approach that, you know, other people might say something that I hadn't thought of, or like we'll all ask a question, have you had this or have you had that? And then between us, we usually come to some sort of answer. So it's just knowing that there's somebody there who totally understands your situation. I guess that's the biggest benefit, is being able to talk openly, and that they understand where you're coming from. You're not being malicious, you're not being mean to your husband, you're not being any of those things. It's all understood, and that's a real comfort. It's a real benefit.
Thanks, Julie. And Sally, what benefits do you think you've experienced?
Yeah, very much like Julie. I think there's a couple of benefits. There's probably lots, but one of them would be the advice. You don't have to do it all by yourself, because someone else will have been through process of, you know, how do you get a carer, what's suitable, what kind of activities can they do, how much should you pay for it, what do you do if it doesn't work? You know, we talk about all of those things, and if people are on different parts of the journey, you can make it a lot easier for them, because finding resources is really hard.
Yeah.
So, you know, I use this company, have you tried this one? All of those kind of things are really useful. So that's on the practical level. On the emotional level is probably the most important. As Julie said, I think you can't understand what it's like unless you're in the situation. You're physically dealing with the day-to-day requirements of caring for somebody, but you're also dealing with the emotional loss of the person that you loved, and it's a really, really difficult situation. You know, so and as Julie said, you can say things and you know the person will understand. Saying to somebody else, telling them a story about what happened, it can sound quite petty, for example, because it's no context for people who don't know what it's like to live it. For somebody who knows what it's like to live it, they understand all the other stuff that goes with it, and the empathy and the support that you get because of that is, you can say things that you wouldn't say to anyone else.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sally. And Gail?
Yes, I would echo everything that Sally and Julie said. And I must admit, when this group, you know, I was invited to join, I was really at a low ebb, I must admit. And Rob had just seemed to accelerate out of nowhere to being aggressive and having whole lots of issues, and I just didn't know how I was going to cope anymore. And it was really lovely to have a group of people. Admittedly, Rob is further along on his journey than everyone else's spouses, but it was really great just to have that sounding board and people that really understood, and the empathy was the key thing. And I didn't feel alone anymore, even though you know, there are people around, but the rest of us are going through the similar kind of thing. All our husbands are different, or our spouses are different, I should say, but there's still those commonalities around different things and how to handle things. You know, I'm lucky now that you know, the COVID is finished and we feel like we can get back. You know, we've lost so much time that we weren't able to do anything, well, any real activities. And I know just Sarah, you know, with Caledonia, that's a godsend. I hope Rob will be able to participate and not, you know, it won't be too much for everyone to handle there. But he really enjoyed it yesterday, our first visit, even though he did want to go home. But so there's that. So it's good to have this network of support. It's really valuable.
Thanks, Gail. I want to ask the three of you, what's missing? What supports do you need that either you don't know are out there or don't exist? What's missing from the service system for people living with young onset dementia? Julie, I'll start with you because you're the top of my screen again.
No, there is no place. I know through earlier days I went, like all of us, I think, you go through really dark periods where you really don't know how you're going to handle the next thing to happen. And there is nowhere that I could find that I could send Frank for respite. For very short, like a day or so, I have safe family. But for me to be able to have 2 or 3 days where I just don't have to think about anything he needed, there's nothing nowhere to take someone at Frank's level. He's still quite social. He's still relatively high functioning. But I mean, he can't, decision making and all the other things I need to take care of aside, he's still that able. And so there's nothing out there. And so I guess that would be my main thing. I found that being able to have Frank at Caledonia 2 days a week has been a huge, huge help, because I can switch off on those 2 days. So I guess that's my main thing. And the support group we've got is great. I think on a personal sort of little bit of the selfish side of it, I'd love somewhere where I could go and say, have, I don't know, art classes, and Frank would be taken care of. So it's to have a dual thing where he can be for a couple of hours doing whatever. Again, it would have to be with at least someone he can have a conversation with. There's no point in taking him somewhere where people are at a stage where they can't talk, because he still has some empathy, and that would just tear him apart. He'd want to help, he'd want to fix everybody and everything. So from a selfish point of view, that would be, I would love if something like that was available.
Thanks, Julie. And Sally, what do you think's missing?
Absolutely respite, without a doubt. There is nothing for younger onset groups, notwithstanding Caledonia services. It's not within my area, so I'm Donington, and there's nothing within our area. So it's especially the longer term. So now I'm thinking about, I do need to have a break and go away for a few days or longer. There's just nowhere for him to go, and he needs to be stimulated. He's physically very active, still wants to do things, wants to participate, and the thought of accessing services that I've got much older people that are not as affected or more affected than Jared, it's just not possible to do that. The thought of, and accessing an aged care, it's just not on the table. And there's nothing else. There is nothing else. And it's a real problem. And I'm booked some holidays now, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but it will have to be in home, and trying to find and juggle, have the responsibility yourself of that continuity of care during that period. And what happens if somebody doesn't turn up, or it's just it's awful.
And Gail, what do you think's missing?
A bit the same. I agree with respite care. I do not envy Julie or Sally coming up to the idea of respite care, because Rob has been in respite care, and there is that fine line, although Rob's much more advanced than obviously Gerald or Frank, but it's the fear of putting him somewhere where he's just going to be sitting there and not being involved or looked after properly. Through no fault of the aged care centres. I mean, he's been to 2 different ones, and the second one was great in that staff were very caring. They let him he shadowed them a lot, and I often found him when I was visiting that he'd be in the nurses' station sitting next to one of the nurses while she's at the computer and stuff like that. And so they were very open to that kind of thing. And I was worried about respite when Rob wasn't as advanced as he was. And I do know there's McLeod Cottage. I'd heard about that because it's in obviously closer to us, and that takes people overnight or up to 6 days. But I'm not sure of the makeup of if there are any younger onset dementia people or what it really is, but I know that that's available, and they have also day programs. I know that, but I didn't really research that once I found out about Caledonia. And recommendation from Julie and Sarah's been fantastic, and it's such a great place. There should be a lot more of those sort of areas, and I think, like Julie, it would be fantastic to do something where you don't feel guilty or have to pay a lot of money to have somebody look after Rob while I go for an hour to do, you know, a workout at the gym or something like that. I'm reluctant to do that. Not so much the cost, but just the thought of, I don't know, you get a sense of guilt that you're using that resource for me, not for Rob. So yeah, that's where I haven't got anything further to add. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, total sense. Total sense. Thank you. They were the questions that I had wanted to ask. Does anybody else have any questions while we've got these wonderful people here who are open to sharing their story? Did anyone else have a question?
Sally?
Yep.
I was just wondering, where is Stoddington, is it?
South Yarra.
South Yarra, okay. Because we're in Canterbury and we've got a younger onset daycare program.
Okay. Where are you, sorry?
It's Maranoa.
Oh, Maranoa. Yes, I just heard about that this morning, actually.
Yeah, okay. So we're in
Dementia
Canterbury.
Australia told me.
Yeah, so it's probably half an hour. I'm in Richmond, and South Yarra is just 10 minutes from there.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're just opening up Tuesday next week, so we're operating it on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, 9:30 to 3:30.
Okay.
So that may help you. And we have
Is that
overnight
specifically for younger onset?
for younger on those 3 days. We operate 6 days, but just the 3 days for the
Monday, Tuesday,
and Thursday. I might have said Friday, but it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 9:30 to 3:30. And we do have an overnight program, which is full at the moment. We only take 3, but it's only 1 night a week. And it's not specifically younger onset, but it's usually used by younger onset.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're the ones that do need the break, I think.
So is that something that people use regularly, or they can use it if they need it?
It is full at the moment. I can see a spot coming up soon. I think someone will go into respite soon.
Okay.
So, but it is limited to our clients.
Okay.
So you,
all right.
you know what I mean? So yeah. So you could use, people normally drop off on the Wednesday morning, pick up on the Thursday afternoon. So it gives you 2 full days.
That's
Yeah. So it is, yeah. And I think it would be, look, I don't know your circumstances, but yeah, it's a lot closer.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I'll be in touch. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, you're welcome. And yeah, I'm happy to give you my mobile number because I manage the younger onset.
Right. Yeah, thank you very much.
Great. I can forward
What a great link. What a terrific link.
Yeah, we've just opened up Tuesday, so we've got lots of vacancy on that day.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Do you take people from outside your geographic area, Sandra?
Yes, we do. Yeah, as long as they're prepared to travel, we don't mind.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great.
So we do have a lot that come. We've got one from South Melbourne, another one from Windsor. So we do have quite a few from sort of that side of town because there isn't anything else. Yeah.
I was just saying to Elizabeth before we started that in the last 2 weeks, I think I've had inquiries from Carnegie. What did I say? Carnegie, Pakenham, Templestowe, Springvale, and Chadstone.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
There really is plenty of resources around.
Such a need, isn't there?
Yeah.
Just it'd be great. I'd love to see. It's not a very competitive business. This. I'd love to see more. More places offering it specifically for the younger. And our clients. I've got some just wanting respite specifically like yourselves, just for the not for overnight, for the younger onset, and no one's been able to come up with anything specific for them.
Yeah.
So that's a real gap I'm finding.
Yeah, well, my Gerard's is a genetic issue that he has, and 4 of his 8 siblings have been diagnosed already.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So the most recent one was about 2 weeks ago, and he's just 50.
Oh, dear. One of my clients has 3 in the family, and they've all been diagnosed with the younger onset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's only one that's had a negative result so far out of the 8.
Oh, well,
Gee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad.
So you can't, I'm in that situation where I can't even rely on Jared's family because they're all busy sorting
Yeah.
themselves out.
Looking after others. Yeah.
Mm.
I know something, sorry to jump in, and I guess I had a query from my perspective. So I work for an organisation called VMCH, or Villa Maria Catholic Homes, and we offer a range of different programs, but I work a lot with Sarah, and we talk about potentially developing, you know, some new either service pathway options, trying to help link people into services, or potentially a new service offering. We have a support for carers program as part of our organisation's community support sort of program delivery, which is what you were sort of saying, Julie, in terms of recreation activities like an art class, where we could also fund, you know, either a one-on-one support worker to work with Frank while you attended, or potentially a group of individuals, you know, who had a common interest or something, while a group of family care partners, you know, partook in the activity, which is mostly a free program. But if anybody's interested in signing up to the newsletter and the mailing list for that program, they offer quarterly carer event booklets. So they just get mailed out to you, emailed out, or mailed out in hard copy, with a list of different, you know, carer events, dinners out, maybe walking groups, education sessions, a range of different options. But I suppose my question was, what type of support at the moment is something that you would have the capacity to sort of look at or see as a welcome offering? So whether that be a newsletter, or if you just don't have the time or the energy to be reading anything in addition to the current, you know, sort of caring role and all that entails, or if it is just purely an overnight respite opportunity, or some type of, you know, day program set up like Sandra was offering. I'm interested to hear where the three of you, of our speakers today, sit respectively on what would be helpful if we perhaps looked at, you know, putting our heads together from a few different provider perspective and resources to develop something that might better support you. So I don't know, does anybody have any suggestions or response to that?
What I'd said, and you've touched on as well, about having a recreational type activity for the carers. I would love that, because even though, say, Frank and I come along and we'll be in separate rooms, it's still something we're doing together. And we've always been, or had always been, good at doing things as a couple, or working through things together. And I guess if that has some sort of semblance to that, well, to me, it would still make me feel like there's a little bit of a link that we haven't lost.
Well, one thing we do, Julie, is through Dementia Australia is their walking program. And they,
what day of the week, Gail? Sorry.
It's on a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Okay.
There's a Wednesday one as well. So you can do either or both or whatever. I know we're going on the walk next Wednesday because we couldn't make the last one, which was on a Tuesday. But that's a great opportunity because they go to all different parts of Melbourne. Like we went to Ascot Vale, the last walk we did, and I think next week it's down Sandringham Way or something like that. So it's all over Melbourne, and it's quite nice to go for a walk where places you don't generally go. The volunteers are really lovely too. It's one of those things where you can just go and people understand, you know, and understand the differences between people and what they may or may not do. And we have coffee. We meet for a coffee beforehand, and often before COVID we'd have lunch together as well at a cafe that would be at the end of the walk, and that's a good opportunity that we can, because Rob still likes walking, so we can walk together and we can each enjoy conversation from different people there at different stages. And there are a couple of younger onset dementia walkers as well. So that's a good opportunity that we really enjoy.
I was going to talk about, so one of the things I have been looking for is, back to the respite thing, but to talk about something different, longer term respite. So if I want to go away on holiday, for example. And I found quite a few, especially when they cater to NDIS payment, that are activity based. It would be group going away to stay on a farm, or a, I don't know, whatever, walking group or whatever, walking for 3 or 4 days, or they will provide a support worker to take someone to do that. But they're generally for younger people with physical disability, or specific groups, a broader spectrum of people.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that that's suitable for our needs, because it is actually quite hard to find support workers who understand what it's like for somebody with dementia, especially somebody young. It's very different from old age, and it's very different from just physical disability. So my example would be a younger person coming to take Jared out and going for a cycle or something like that, even for just a day, is their ability to, because he physically looks fine, sounds fine, but I would know that if you're going somewhere he hasn't been to before, you have to watch when he goes to the toilet that he comes back, finds it. But they don't think of that, because they think in the line of disability or frailty. They don't think of mental disability. So it's quite hard to find people. And I segue back to my original thing about the group, these people that do group activities that don't cater for younger onset dementia. So that would be something I'd like to see. Because he wants to do things.
Yeah, same as Frank, yeah.
And I personally find I haven't done much of it. Maybe I need to do it first. So that's a good suggestion from Gail. But, you know, the thought of kind of driving an hour to go for an hour's walk and drive an hour home is, it's not really, doesn't appeal to me that much. If it was longer, maybe. And it's trying to access these things because they're all so far away.
Hi everyone. I haven't introduced myself, so I had troubles before with the system and I still can't start my video. My name's Olga Lomzis. I work at Regis, managing the Northern Territory, and my colleague Sheridan's actually on the call as well, who manages the Southeast and Bayside regions. So we have a number of residential aged care homes with memory support units. Some are smaller than others, so a 13-bed would be a small memory support unit that manages onset dementia and Alzheimer's and specific behaviours, to our larger homes that have a 20-odd bed memory support unit. We can offer short-term respite once we are familiar with the client and their needs. So if somebody does come in, say, for a week or a 2-week period, the clinical team can have a really good assessment of their personality, what behaviours they have, what triggers them, and then we can actually have 2 to 5 day respite stays booked in if that's something that you want to consider in our homes.
All right.
So we do offer that service, but it's just a matter of the clinical team understanding the person's specific needs in terms of their memory and where they're at in their dementia or Alzheimer's stages. The other thing we also can offer is companion services.
Sorry.
Pardon?
Can I just interject at that point? I'm not going to speak for the others, but I'll speak for us. I wouldn't put Jared in an old people's home. I just wouldn't do it. And no matter how, and this is not about the services you provide, it's just surrounding him with people who are 20, 30 years older than him.
Yep, so just having said that, we are an NDIS provider as well, so we have a number of residents under 65 living in our homes. Not everybody is over 65, and we cater for everybody based on their specific care and support requirements. It's not all into one group of elderly people that we base our activities on. So it depends on the resident mix in those specific areas as well. An example of that would be our Blackburn home that has also got an Auslan section in the memory support unit, where we have residents that are between 25 and 50 years old. So we do have a wide variety of ages living in the residential aged care homes.
Could I ask, with those people who may come into respite, I guess I wonder what the after effect is, because I haven't got a lot of experience in terms of working with people with dementia, but with other people I'm very much aware of, that taking them out of their familiar environment. I know this is really hard on the carers, but taking them out often leads or can lead to them being totally disorientated and then coming back having deteriorated. And I can't imagine what that would be like for the people who have been carers and support people, who have put so much effort into trying to maintain it. So I guess in summary, my question is, the people who run this type of assistance or support, do you know in terms of the benefits, whether they actually outweigh any disadvantages? I mean, what do you find with people who have gone in, say, for a week's respite or whatever, when they come home? Am I asking it clearly enough? I'm not sure.
I think that was directed at
I don't know.
Olga and Sheridan.
Yeah.
Who answers it? It was just
Well, Gail's had experience of that.
Yes, I have. And Rob went into respite care after an acute situation in November, where he was in the Austin hospital for 3 weeks because of behavioural issues. It was shocking. I didn't know how I was ever going to cope with him again. Yeah. But he went into respite for 4 weeks, and I did notice that I was concerned about him while he was in that respite, because I don't know whether it was getting used to the drug regime or whatever, but he seemed to have deteriorated quite a bit. But once he came home, he actually it was very stable, and we had a change of medication as well. And yeah, he did pick up, and he's been stable ever since. But we did put him into respite only last month to go away for a few days, and he was there for 2 weeks in a different place. And I found that he was fine. He was.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, he came home, slotted straight back into home. I went and saw him, apart from the 5 days we were away, I saw him every day. The hard part is going to visit every day because of the COVID regimes, and you're supposed to visit in the room or out in the courtyard or the garden and undercover. All that's great, but Rob wouldn't stay in one place and would always go to the rooms where I wasn't supposed to go in. So that was fraught with frustration of constantly trying to redirect him and that sort of thing. But once he came home, I've been really, I mean, there's still issues to cope with and all that sort of thing, but that there aren't any of the behavioural issues or anything like that. So that's good. I mean, and respite allowed the opportunity to Rob to get used to things like locking the door. I had never locked the front door, the deadlock, and he accepted the doors deadlocked. Now, there's no fuss about trying to get, I mean, he does try to get out the door sometimes, but he'll just say it's locked. So that's been a really good help. And the other thing that was a really good help was once he went into hospital and that, because he had continence issues, and we had, he was introduced to continence aids and things like that. So he's quite accepting of those things. So yes, it does have pluses and minuses. And I there were a lot of elderly people, but I noticed there were a couple of younger onset dementia people there too. So, and very social, chatty people as well, which helped Rob a lot, I think, because they talked to him. Not that he spoke much, but he seemed quite happy to go and sit next to
The
people.
environment was great. Thank you so much for that.
It's understanding where these places are and where they're available and what it,
And that's the hard part. I must admit, I went through a consultancy, a placement consultant, so that they did a lot of the legwork first, because they knew the issues with Rob. They also, you know, the distance from home, those sorts of things, and the dementia programs that they had. So I wasn't wasting my time sorting through them myself. They gave me about 4 or 5 to have a look at, and I decided on the one that was closest to home, because it did seem the best one for Rob at this time, and that's good. And probably when I have to face eventually the long term, that would be high up on my list, even though it doesn't have some of the things that I would want them to have, like a cafe or an area where family can get together and that sort of thing. It wasn't the high end kind of, but the care was good and the program was good. So that weighs the other things.
Can I just ask, just for a client, how you got onto the consultancy?
Oh,
Okay.
right. We actually used, my brother and sister-in-law used it for her mother, and we used it for our father too when he had to go into care. So we went back to them to find a place, and they're listed in, I don't know if this one was, I think it is. I think it's in the aged care booklet anyway on placement consultants.
Okay.
So they charge a fair bit, but it's a lifetime charge. So they will find different places for you to keep on going.
Yeah.
And they
also
they'll also negotiate. They do not respite, but if you want to go into permanently, then they do the negotiation of the RAD and that sort of thing.
Yes, that's less for you to worry about.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
I've never even heard of that.
Just on top of that as well, myself and Sheridan, that's our roles in the community.
Oh, right.
So we do exactly the same thing that you just discussed there, in regards to placing people into suitable homes, depending on their social, spiritual, emotional, physical needs. And we don't, if Regis doesn't have that solution, we are actually very well connected in the industry, because we both come from other providers. So we rely heavily on other providers as well to support us, because ultimately we're not competitors. We're all trying to help the community to have a better health outcome. So me and Sheridan are quite happy to help out if you have any clients that need that support.
That's great.
I do, so I'll try and get your contact details. Yeah, thank you.
I'll send them through.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sorry.
No, you go. You go.
I was just going to say, did anyone have any other questions?
Okay. I was just going to ask, in terms of the NDIS, if people have been accepted on the program, what difference did that make?
Huge.
Okay, so what did it enable you to arrange or put
Look,
in
it's a very,
place?
first of all, it's probably, I'd add that it's a very difficult experience.
Yeah, it would be.
I worked for many years as a senior strategy consultant. I have my own business, so I'm not familiar with doing business cases and stuff like that. And I worked for government in the Premier's office, so I know how to speak government. And even then, I found it extremely difficult.
Yeah.
The best advice somebody could give me, and it sounds like I'm being flippant, but it's true, was when you say, well, what kind of things can they provide? Because you're new on this journey, you have no idea. You have no idea what the future holds.
Gotta
You have
learn
no
it,
idea
yeah.
what you need. And they say, well, what do you need? It's like, this conversation is going nowhere, because I don't know what I need. I don't know what you can provide. And you're saying, well, what do you want? It's not, but I don't know. We're kind of going around this circle. It was so frustrating. So through self-education, really, I went through that journey probably first amongst some of the people, you know, the carer group stuff. So I probably am able to help other people do it. But back to your question, the ability to have support workers for a day at a time. So there's 2
That's what
groups.
I would have thought.
Physical activity. Jared's very physical, so finding somebody that would keep up with him, and he's walking, running, jogging, cycling, rock climbing, kayaking, you name it. So that's been great. Also accessing services like there's a lady who helps Jared. They go through the cookbooks, decide what.
Yeah, so there's lots of sort of activities.
Makes me for dinner, which is lovely, because then I get dinner once a week, and they go out and shop and they cook and all that kind of stuff. So it's a thing that helps me. It's a thing that helps him have purpose. Feels like he's achieved something. All those kind of things. The other thing that's been great but very difficult to get, I have to say, is somebody that helps us at home, because that's safety with power tools, clearing the gutters, structure around how to do it, as well as doing it safely. That kind of DIY type stuff, that's been really important, because I'm hopeless at it. I'm getting better though. I can actually drill. I know the difference between a drill and a screwdriver now. And I actually figured out, on one of our recliners broke the other day, and I actually figured out how to rewire it, because it wired it. So look at me go. But you back to the NDIS. I think it has quite a few purposes. It's one is giving Jared activities that are meaningful. It provides me with a breather and time for myself. And I know that it really helps our relationship, because Jared gets stimulus from somebody else and comes home a lot happier than when he left.
Right.
I found it quite difficult as well, and I could totally understand how so many people would just give up. But then it happened to be about the time that I met Jane Lee at Dementia Australia, and she talked me through a lot of it, and she actually came to consequent meetings with me.
Yes.
And that was an enormous help, because I didn't speak government speak like you did, Sally. I had to, and my daughter was very helpful as far as that went. But if I didn't have, and even with that support, it was still quite a struggle. But I didn't give up. I can be stubborn when I need to be. But through them, I was able to provide Frank with they provided Frank with the 2 days at Caledonia. He has an exercise physiologist.
Oh, that's okay.
He has all those sort of things in place. And because financially, I guess this thing has probably robbed us of like 10 years, 8 to 10 years income, because we had to stop work, and income and super and all of that. So I don't know that I could quite manage to do all of this if it was all us having to pay for it. So I am grateful to them, and I am grateful that I bumped into the people that I have along the way that helped us get there.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we're fine. It's just that you don't have to then think about, that it's covered, that it's taken care of, and that's something you don't need to worry about.
You can really do with somebody, I think, that helps. I mean, mentioned checklist, or Gail did before, but understanding things about how do you access carer's card, how do you access carer's payment, how do you access the companion card, all of those things are really valuable. And they're not easy to get, and you don't know about them. It's taken me a long time to understand.
I'm in the process of filling out for the companion card. And that's
and you have to go to your doctor to sign them off. well, why the hell wouldn't you get them all done at the same time?
Yeah.
If you knew about it. Yeah.
When you could go to your doctor and say, right, sign that one, and that one, and it's all done. But
Yeah.
you do it in bits, and so
And if you think about it, you would think that people would have thought about making it easy and having it all together.
yes, absolutely.
I mean, if you think about it, it's incredible. It just doesn't happen in the area, but it's incredible that you find out by chance, just by sheer luck. You haven't got it all together, as you're saying, and therefore it makes it so difficult. And so much, but I just wonder whether there's, I don't quite know what, whether within the group something could be done or something, but what a need.
Can I, if I may just make a comment on, we were saying before about what we need, or what I was one of those people that thought that dementia only affected the old and the very old, and I think a huge proportion of the public, of people, still think along the same lines. And I thought, how do we tell people that people like my husband are that's dementia, that's what dementia looks like as well. It's not just the 90,
not just
sitting in a chair. There's still, how I would love it if there was something out there that we could actually put out there.
Almost like an education.
That is actually something Sarah and I, and even in this group and another dementia-specific network meeting that Sarah and I again co-chair, we've workshopped that a little bit about whether we can maybe hold an expo that is specific to younger onset dementia and invite, general members of the community along, and just try and hold space for people to have some of these discussions. Yeah. And I'm just aware of the time. We've almost used up the hour. But perhaps Sarah, I know, pops in and out, or are you always at these younger onset carer meetings, Sarah, that potentially you could be a point of contact for, between the two groups, between the carer support group and this network meeting, because potentially we could help if you, put your heads together and think about what you might need or want, or what services, or whether it's an expo, or whether you'd like a guest presenter. I think, Sarah's a really good advocate for trying to source some of this stuff or bring ideas back to this group, because I think there's definitely resources available. It's just a matter of service providers knowing what to pull together and then how to promote it so that people who need that support are actually getting the information.
I think there's some great services out there. There must be out there to help us, but it's accessing them and knowing. And so Dementia Australia does some good stuff, don't get me wrong, but there's just so much stuff on their website, and it's all repetitive, with not enough detail. They should be the central group who are the advocates and pick up somebody with a new diagnosis, holds their hand. I feel very strong about this, as you can tell, and I've had this discussion with them. They should be the ones holding your hand through this stuff, connecting you with everything, and they just don't do it. Not effectively. And
like you were, something like what you were saying before, Sally, is that if it's out there and you don't know, well, then you don't know that
they don't know half the time.
You don't know.
And the information is spread so broadly. It's so difficult to access it. And yes,
you need it in your local area.
Spreadsheets.
Yes,
they've got a million downloads you can do, but all of them, you take away one sentence out of each one, and it's all repetitive, and it's just not user friendly. I think they're wasting a lot of money.
No, I'm good.
Thank you so much for to the three of you for sharing your stories today, because I think even this recording of this meeting, Sarah and I have contacts at Dementia Australia, and perhaps this could form and start a conversation or continue a conversation just to really promote out of your own mouths the need for better service navigation, smoother sort of, transition of information and knowing what services are available, because we really do want to actually take action and make a change for you. So I really feel like this is a valuable session, and we really appreciate your all of you sharing some of your experiences. So thank you from my perspective.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, do you want to wrap up, or anything else?
Yeah, no, I echo you, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing, sharing your lives with us, I guess, and your experience of the diagnosis and living with that diagnosis of dementia. Olga and Sheridan have put some fantastic information in the chat. If people want to copy that into something or have a read of it, or at least grab their email addresses. And yeah, Elizabeth and I will keep working to advocate for, some change at least. We may not be able to do everything I've written down from your comments today, but we might
I've made a lot of notes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your candour and your willingness to share.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You.
Thank
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.